It's Tuesday, September 24th, and I'm your host, Paula Hersey. On today's show, we learn more about some recent promotions in Barnstable, learn more about how to recycle smart with Waste Reduction Coordinator Carrie Parcell, and reminders from COM Fire Chief Wynn to make a disaster plan for you and your family. Now for a look at municipal and legislative notes. The Barnstable Human Rights Advisory Commission is seeking volunteer candidates to fill vacancies. Volunteer responsibilities include attending meetings and aiding coordinator Deb Battles and the team in educating the public about the commission, its projects, and human rights as a whole. Applicants must be permanent residents of Barnstable County to become a member. Those with varied language skills and diverse backgrounds are strongly encouraged to apply. A resume and a letter of intent should be sent to hrc@barnstablecounty.org. Applicants must be received no later than October 10 at 4 p.m. Interviews will be held later in the month. For any questions, contact Deb Battles at 508-375-6611. A total of 7 Barnstable police officers were promoted this past Thursday, 2 sergeants to the rank of lieutenant and 5 patrol officers to the rank of sergeant. Chief Sonneman joins us with an in-depth look on the process these officers went through for promotion. You can watch the promotion ceremony on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Barnstable Channel 18. Promotions at Barnstable Police Department. With me today, Chief Sonneman.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Wonderful weather we're having.
Oh, absolutely.
Where's fall?
Fall, it's second summer, local summer,
Yeah,
right?
Indian summer?
Yeah.
Second summer? I like that, second summer. Shoulder season, second summer.
Exactly.
Hey.
And
Good.
absolutely fabulous. All this week will be nice. Last week for the promotion ceremony, you
Beautiful.
promoted a
Cartload?
a cartload, a boatload. 7 individuals were promoted this past week. Tell us a little bit about the process of getting promotions. You're a civil service organization, so how does that happen? You went lieutenants and sergeants.
Yep. Well, it's basically the same thing. It's because we are a civil service agency, there is a test. Civil service gives you the option. You can either have a written exam or a combination written exam and assessment center. Traditionally, we've done the written exam for all the ranks, but over the years, like the chiefs has gone to just an assessment center. The deputy chiefs has gone to an assessment center, and but the lower ranks have still stayed a written exam. What the civil service will do, they'll have you take the written exam first, and if you pass that, then you go on to an assessment center. So they get some questions and some stuff like that, some practical exercises to work through. So it's not just evaluating how good you do on a written exam, but how well you can speak to others, solve problems, and things like that. So what we did for this is they had the written exam that they had already done. So we got them all together. We have to do interviews. We have a policy that we do interviews and whatnot. So we had an outside company come in and do some interviews and do a little exercises with the groups to have them do a little bit of problem solving and see where they get. Because a lot of times the downfall of a written exam is, it assesses how well you memorize some material and you can answer A, B, or C, but it doesn't really get to the root of, well, why did you get that answer? Because sometimes how people get to an answer is just as important as the answer they come up with. So a nice little couple exercises are nice to evaluate what you got going on and see what you're going. But because, like I said, because we are civil service, it's really test driven. So you could, just come into work every day, take the test, score really well, and you go to the top of the list. So there's a bunch of procedures we got to go through to try and find the best candidates. But we still are bound by rules as to who you can pick and when, and it's kind of like our hiring process, bypasses and things like that. Non-civil service departments have it a little bit different. They can structure it to whatever whatever fits their community a little bit, whatever fits their department and their needs. But we are civil service, and because of that, just like our new hire exams, the tests for sergeants, lieutenants, and most of those ranks are all every 2 years. So that list will stay active for 2 years, and I think the one the sergeants are on runs till 2021, and the one the lieutenants are on expires this coming up February. So there'll be a new exam. They just had the new exam a couple of days over the weekend.
All right. So you had 5 new sergeants promoted. What's the difference in their duties from a patrol person to a sergeant? Is it more supervisory now? Is it a specific division that they're actually controlling, or is it just that they're the person that would, be in charge at a specific event or something like that?
Well, the way we work is the lieutenants are in charge of the shifts.
Okay.
They have they're the shift commander. They have overall charge of the shift. But you only have one lieutenant assigned to a shift, so they're not there every day. As much as we'd like them to be there every day all the time, they can't be there every day. So the sergeants fill in. The senior sergeant will be the step in for the lieutenant when the lieutenant is off or whatever, and runs the shift for a day. The lieutenant's got overall oversight of the shift, but then the sergeant will take control of that shift for the day. Usually we got 2 sergeants working at least. If not a sergeant, a lieutenant, then it'll be a sergeant and a sergeant. We staff the shifts. 1 sergeant will be outside on the road as the patrol supervisor. 1 sergeant will be inside as what we call the watch commander, and deals with people that come into the station, oversees dispatch, and takes care of the booking and the prisoners and whatever administrative duties need to be done that day on the shift, and kind of keeps track of everything, keeps everybody informed. But realistically, when we're not around, when I'm not around or the deputy chiefs aren't around, the sergeants, whoever's there that day, whatever supervisor they're kind of like the de facto chief. So you got to have a lot of trust in the people that are out there running your shifts, because they really step in. They're representing you, and they're representing the whole department and running everything. So I think that what we have was a real good core of supervisors, and they do an excellent job. But to get back to the first part of your question, what do they do and what are their duties every day? And to me, the most important rank in any agency, especially ours, bigger agency like ours, is that sergeant rank, because they are, that bridge between me and the patrol. They're the ones. I can't be everywhere every day. They're the ones that talk to the patrolmen every day. They're there. They know what the conditions are. Patrol has an issue, feeds it to the sergeant. It comes up to me. We develop in programs. We get the sergeants involved, and they feed it down to patrol. So a sergeant rank is a really key to the overall health and welfare of the agency itself. They are where the rubber meets the road. Key to any organization in my eyes.
Right. And then 2 lieutenants. So again, probably somewhat similar to that same sergeant piece, but a little bit of a higher level. Maybe more on the side of helping you create policy and things like that, rather than delivering the policy.
Exactly. Because the way patrol works, patrol is 90% of everything we do. So all these promotions, these people are all going to patrol. Because wherever we are, whatever we're doing, that is the main mission of the police department, providing that patrol service, answering that 911, and making sure that gets done. So no matter where you are in our building, you have to have an understanding of how that works. And I think it's imperative that supervisors spend time down on patrol, because eventually you're going to get to a point where you're going to come up with some great policy that you really like, but you got to have an understanding of how that affects people everywhere else in the agency. Hey, does this really work? Is this practical? You still have to have conversations with people and make sure that what you're doing is practical, but you also have to have a little bit of basis of knowledge of like, well, I've been there, and that really doesn't sound like such a good idea to me. So you got to have that practicality. But yeah, because of the way we are, lieutenants do maintain, a shift lieutenant does maintain a strong bond to their officers and the people that are assigned to them on their shifts. Not as strong as the sergeants, because the sergeants are there every day and there's more of them. They get more contact. But the lieutenants do still have a strong bond with the people they work with, and they should, because in the end, they got to represent them to me. We got to make things work for them and make sure everything works in the right way. But lieutenants do have a little bit more of an administrative function too, because now you're trying to get them involved in some staff functions, because they need to know administratively what they can do, how they can do it, how does the budget work, and how do my choices, affect the department's budget, or how things just work above where I am today. So they have to kind of have an eye a little bit higher while keeping their feet in the ground and down on patrol. So, but then it's like anywhere else, it's communication. I gotta give them enough information to trust that they're gonna make the right decisions that affect us all overall in the right way.
All right. And what I noticed in most of the bios of the sergeants and the lieutenants is the amount of education that these folks put in addition to their day job, right? They've got masters, and they're, and they're the masters in all sorts of different types of law enforcement topics. Speak to a little bit about how they balance that. I mean, it just, these master's programs and some of these bachelor programs that these guys are going through is not necessarily easy to do after an 8-hour shift on the road.
And throwing kids and
right,
other things
and
that you have
families,
going on.
right?
Yeah, family life and everything. But I think that's a credit to their families too, because like I said, when we were talking at the promotions, these people didn't get there to where they are themselves. They got there because other people made sacrifices to allow them to go to school or to work an extra shift or to pursue something else, like be a detective or something else, in order to fulfill their dreams and chart the course they saw towards promotion. So they really depended on the people around them, the people they work with, the people at home, and their friends that have really helped them get through this. And I think that's really important, because without that help, you're right, it would have been a difficult course to chart, maybe impossible to get all that done. But it speaks to their motivation. They're out there, they see that, hey, police promotions are a competitive process, and when it comes down to different things, you want to make sure maybe you get that one little extra bit. But also, getting out there and getting some education and reading on a daily basis, whatever it is, keep your mental acuity going.
Right.
Really helps. Makes your job easier. It makes you more well-rounded. So
right.
it's really it's key. So it is good.
Right, and we'll close with this. Please name the officers that were promoted.
All right, we got Lieutenant Gretchen Allen, Lieutenant Jennifer Ellis, we got Sergeant Megan Cunningham, Sergeant Matt Blondin, Sergeant Joseph Green, Sergeant Nathan St. Onge, and I'm missing one off the top of my head. Kevin Fulham, Sergeant Kevin Fulham. So we're going to be looking probably for a canine officer coming up here pretty shortly too. So.
Yeah, I asked if Vonnie was getting promoted. He said no.
No, she's not getting. She's getting an extra biscuit though.
Extra biscuit.
Sergeants can afford more biscuits.
That's fantastic. Thanks so much, Chief.
Have a great day.
Tons of plastic was taken out of the environment through the Recycle Boat Shrink Wrap program. And we have more recycling news with Barnstable County Waste Reduction Coordinator, Carrie Parcell. We're talking recycling today with Carrie Parcell, the Cooperative Extension Waste Reduction Manager, Coordinator,
Manager, it all works.
all sorts of different titles there, but really what you do is you try to make sure that Cape Cod is recycling smart.
Yes, we want to recycle smart, we want to recycle clean, and we want quality recycling markets.
Right. So you had a pilot program this year that seemed to garner a lot of interest, and from my understanding, actually saved a lot of plastic out of the oceans and everywhere else. Tell us a little bit about how the boat shrink wrap program went.
Yeah, so we wrapped up on June 30th. It was about a 9-week program. It was accessible to all Cape towns and communities, as well as harbor masters, boatyards, marinas, etc. And so in that 9 weeks, we recycled about 3.6 tons of boat shrink wrap. And if you remember, boat shrink wrap, when you take it off of the average boat, it weighs about 15 pounds. We talked about that big burrito wrapped in a bow, no strings, no wires, stuff like that. And so that's the equivalent of about 450 plus boats. Bourne actually collected the most, maybe just an accessible area with the Upper Cape, and then we had Dennis and Eastham who also participated. Not to forget that Sea Grant Woods Hole paid for this, so services are not free, but we allowed it to be free for our residents and again boat owners that originate on Cape Cod. And then we had AmeriCorps volunteers, and of course the Extension Department, aka myself, helped, and we all put our efforts together, and it was a great 9 weeks. Very cool.
And talk a little bit about that plastic. It's a little different than what we normally consider, our old milk bottles or whatever we throw away in our plastics. That plastic can break down and get everywhere, can it?
Yeah, so when you're talking about plastics in general, plastics don't really ever sort of biodegrade or disintegrate. They just become like smaller and smaller and smaller nanoplastics. And they get into our drinking water, they get into the, our food supplies because they go into the animals that absorb them, and then we eat those animals, and they even fly out through the air, which is quite interesting. But boat shrink wrap is a number 6 plastic for the most part, because you have to use, there's all these chemicals in there that when you heat it up, it sort of expands, and then as it cools, it shrinks, and that's what makes it a pretty decent weather retardant as far as boats go. It protects it. If you do it correctly when you're cutting it per season, you can actually reuse that up to 3 years, because the compounds do break down as you reheat and shrink and reheat and shrink. But you can use it up to about 3 seasons if you want to. Tarps and covered sheds and stuff work just as well. But we all know the weather here on the Cape, and if you're storing your boats here, you want to protect that investment. So it's a highly chemicalized, thick, crazy plastic that can be hard to recycle if there's no market for it. Luckily, we found a market and we found a vendor, and so it all sort of came together. This wasn't our first year, but it was the first year with an expansion outside of a location in Woods Hole at the oceanographic facility, and so it made it more accessible and a little bit more widely known that this was available to the residents and boat owners of Cape. So it was awesome.
Fantastic. And there's always still talk. We're just going to talk smart recycling. Contaminated loads are still out there, aren't they?
They are. The Cape is really pretty good. I mean, residents are pretty cognizant and aware. There are challenges to recycling, just kind of like anything. And as everybody knows, we're all talking about it. Is things really getting recycled? Do things go into our landfills? Are they going to our waste to energy facilities? And the short answer is yes, it can, but not purposefully. It's mostly because we're not qualityizing our loads. We're sort of, quantity, if in doubt, put it in the bin, someone else will sort it out, right? And that's what we've been doing for 30 years. And it's, we want it to be convenient, we want it to be easy, but it needs to be right, it needs to be smart. And the way that the markets are is if you think of your toter or a bin that you put all your recycling in, if you put too much contaminants in it, it really becomes a load of trash with recycling in it, not recycling with trash in it. So we kind of have to visualize that. Right. And when you're thinking about the recycling systems for our state, they go through conveyor belts and optics and blowers and magnets, and human hands are touching this. And so if we're not putting the right things in there, you're really making it a worker safety issue, you're making it a production issue, and you're making it a processing, sorting, baling issue, because if you have coat hangers or Christmas lights or baby dolls or diapers or food waste, plastic bags are the #1 contaminant, and they tangle up in that, that system for separation, and that's really our big problem. So it's really sort of knowing what's recyclable versus, somebody else will take care of it for us. We really need to take accountability for our own ability to put the right things in that bin.
Right. And there is a website that helps with that. It has a Recyclepedia,
recyclesmartma.org.
Right.
And it does, right on the homepage, there's a little widget called the Recyclepedia, and you can type in, various items. I believe there's a list more of 400 strong, and you can type in car bumper, and it'll probably tell you to put it in the scrap metal at your transfer station or having to take it to a scrap metal pile. Right. If it says Christmas lights, during the season, most of our transfer stations put out barrels specific to Christmas lights so they can take it to a metal sorter. So there's all different things. I mean, black plastics don't get read by our optic readers, and so black plastics, like the Chinese bottoms of the to-go containers, are not recyclable because they're not being read, so they're just going into the resin anyway. And so it begs a larger question about, extended producer responsibility and our manufacturers and processors of these particular plastics for our to-go containers, etc. But, for now, the Cape is doing a really nice job.
Right. And one of the last things we would kind of want to touch on is that we now have the ability to recycle our own glass here on Cape Cod. This is super exciting, really cool technology. It's going to save towns who bring loads to this recycler. Tell us what it is.
Yeah, so we call it processed glass aggregate, and really what it is, it's recyclable glass. So your mayonnaise jars, your jelly jars, your jam jars, put the lid back on, make sure they're not, they don't have to be super clean, don't waste a ton of water cleaning it out, but nice and clean. Your deposit bottles, your wine bottles, things like that. And you don't want tempered glass like windshields, you don't want mirrors in there, photo frame glass, that sort of stuff that's not recyclable. But your recyclable glass in general, you can clean it, cap it, and then take it to your transfer station. And there's 5 towns that source separate their glass from the rest of the commingled, which would be your plastics and tin and aluminum. And what they do is they take it to the town of Dennis, which received a grant through DEP, and they have a big lot where they tip the glass, and it's away from the public because we need to be safe. Okay. And at 600 tons, which currently we're at 540, we have a third-party vendor that comes in, and they actually crush it down to a 3/8 minus, and it's used for roadway, building, construction, and drainage projects. So if you buy a glass container on the Cape, and then you consume, eat whatever was within it, you clean it up, and you take it to one of those 5 transfer stations, it's actually going to be reused here on those projects. And so it's quite fascinating, and it's a really great regional program, and that's what we're working on. With boat shrink wrap, it's regional. With glass, it's regional. We have, mattress recycling, that's regional. We have latex paint, that's regional. And so these are the big things that we're working on as a group, as a community, as CAPE, that we can work on together and really sort of give access to folks for that proper recycling and to find those streams and uses for it.
This is fantastic. The Barnstable is participating in this program with the glass.
They are.
So it's really important, again, to look at what you're putting in your recycling. So no ceramic dishes, no porcelain.
Nope.
It's really literally just...
no drinking glasses. You don't want to put any vases or anything like that in there. Again, it's recyclable glass. So pickle jars, mayonnaise jars, olive jars, those types of things, basically food and beverage. Think of it as food and beverage. And again, when in doubt, you can go to recyclesmartma.org, type it in, and it'll tell you what to do with it. So it's easy peasy. We're trying our best to just make it right there, easy peasy for you.
Right, but we're going to actually probably reduce, reuse, recycle, right?
Yes, I mean the first, we went from 3 R's, we actually have 9 now. We have 9 R's, but I'm not going to bore you with them nor overwhelm anybody with them. But really it's kind of like a refuse, reduce, we want to, I have a mason jar at home that somebody gave me some flowers in, and I cleaned it out very thoroughly, and I use it as a drinking jar now. So, and sometimes it's a vase, sometimes I drink out of it. I'm not telling you to do that. However, it's something that I option out with that particular, mason jar instead of, tossing it. But I do. I kind of go back and forth between, if I have flowers in my house, it's my vase, and if I don't, it's my drinking glass.
There you go. Excellent.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, Carrie.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
The Atlantic Ocean is churning up hurricanes and tropical storms. We are in the thick of hurricane season. Do you have a plan for when disaster is on your doorstep? Centerville, Osterville, Marston's Mills Fire Chief Mike Wynn has some great tips to keep you and your family safe.
The best advice we have is to be aware, and I know it sounds cliche in Awareness Week, but really pay attention to what's coming as far as weather reports, messages from your elected leaders, and public safety messages from the departments that respond. These folks take a great deal of time, energy, and hard work in making sure we get the best, most accurate, up-to-date information out to our residents and our guests. And it's important for you to pay attention to what those messages say or recommend. When we think about preparedness, the first thing I would recommend is if you live in our district, you should know your zone. And knowing your zone means where are you if there's a flood. Those maps are on our website, they're on the MEMA website. They're available for everyone to see and look at and really consider what would happen to where you live if we were to have a hurricane such as the one bearing down on the Carolinas and the Virginia coast. What would that mean? And it's easy to see online. Know your zone is a very important component. The next component I would think about is the ability to be self-sufficient. If we have a major weather emergency and you have to be self-reliant, that's going to require you to prepare for 3 to 4 days of fresh water, food, and have a contact off Cape that can check in on you in the case communication systems go down. So you have some way of communicating, if you can, with someone off Cape who could relay messages to us. If folks are asked to evacuate, it's not because we want to hinder you or burden you. It's because we may not be able to respond to your location should there be an emergency. Evacuation notices are taken very seriously. They can really only be offered by the governor. And if someone says it's time to evacuate, it's because it's time to evacuate. We take that very seriously. Be self-sufficient for 3 days. Have food, water. Make sure your pets are taken care of. Make sure you have meds ready to cover you if you have any prescription issues. And just be ready to be self-reliant. We may not be able to help. In the event of a Category 2 or 3 hurricane, the wind is going to limit our ability to respond because it simply won't be safe to put our responders on the road. We will take every response on a risk-based assessment, and there may be times where due to weather, water, flood heights, street closings, we may not be able to get out and effect aid if requested. That's a two-way street, so if you hear of the wind and you hear of the water, that also means you shouldn't be out on the road, or you should be in a safe place as well. The biggest component is, honestly, is to be aware and to listen to the messages that are coming out from the agencies that are charged with protecting you. We offer a great deal of hurricane preparedness resources on our website, which would be www.comfiredistrict.com. In addition, you can go to the MEMA website, the Massachusetts Emergency Management website. They have a great deal of information specifically to Awareness Week, but also those Know Your Zone flood maps, tips for preparing self-sustainment for 3 days, and the things to consider for your family and your pets. So MEMA.gov has a lot. Remember that children are going to be listening to everything you're hearing on the TV. Even my 3-year-old son today at home was asking me about Hurricane Florence and if it was coming to Cape Cod. Children are very perceptive and they know exactly what's going on because they hear the same messages that you hear. It's important to comfort your children and let them know that we'll take care of them the best we can and have them be prepared for a bug out if necessary. The elderly are our greatest concern, whether it's a resident who lives at home who's on oxygen at home or requires a lot of prescription medications. Those folks need to be really looked at as a at-risk population for us as a community. We have shelters available here in the town of Barnstable and on Cape Cod, but really the elderly need to have the ability to have someone help them to be sustainable if something goes bad with a storm. We ask neighbors to check on their elderly neighbors. We ask family to check on their elderly family members. And just remember, there may be times we just simply cannot get to you because of the conditions of the storm.
Up next, things to do, places to go, and people to meet. Do you have a Barnstable High School student interested in working in the building trades? Consider attending the Residential Construction Career Day, October 10th. Careers in the building trades involve buying the land, clearing the land, designing and building the structures, finishing touches such as landscape design, and selling the property. Everything from masonry, framing, and carpentry to architecture and design will be represented at the Residential Correction Career Day. Please see your counselor today or any day to sign up. Seats are filling up fast. Sign up does close on Thursday, September 26th. Comments, suggestions, accolades, connect with us on Facebook, email us, or send us an old-fashioned note by carrier pigeon. Channel 18 works. For you, I'm Paula Hersey, and thank you for watching Barnstable Today.